there's only 2 5-0s that have gone through for the first day, and the interesting point about it is that their deck lists are ever in the year which ladder does not have any point standings for your actual rankings in your region. So this tour stop is really important.
It's a weird
for the
statement,
points.
Dan. I don't think I'd ever, hear that statement of the day. It's kind of bittersweet to think about that.
Bittersweet.
I think a lot of players would, consider it great that they may not have to queue ladder, but there were some ladder grinders out there that really appreciated it.
Well, I do know that there's a handful of ladder grinders that are still here, but they want to get those ever elusive Hearthstone Championship Tour points. So I do sympathize with people who feel like it's a really good entry gateway for a lot of the players who start off on their couches or in their bedrooms playing, and then want to make that step to pro.
Tablet gamer, just trying to, eventually they get legend, and they're like, "What is this?"
In my opinion, that's actually one of the most underrated things about like competitive Hearthstone. I know a lot of people tend to look at the stadium type events for like the large ballrooms with huge Swiss rounds. But one of the coolest things about Hearthstone is how accessible it is for those players who get started by watching streams on their phones and then wanting to compete through ladder. Perhaps, having some kind of bridge to gap that is going to be important moving forward. But for now, we do know that ladder has been effectively retired. And with that being said, we're focused on the tour stop. We have our first game. It's Dragon Priest from Asuna going up against NoHands, playing the Kingsbane Rogue. Now, Dragon Priest, what do you think about this variant of Dragon Priest now that the new expansion's out?
Yeah, so this Dragon Priest is very reminiscent of, the Dragon Priest we've seen recently, where it is a control priest. It runs a dragon package in the form of Primordial Drakes, Twilight Acolytes, also the Twilight Drakes. It kind of capitalizes on having that dragon cost synergy while trying to end the game, finally, with a Mind Blast package. The Mind Blast package, when you have Anduin up, will deal anywhere from about 16 to 19 damage, depending on how many Mind Blasts you have in your hand. So it's quite an explosive way to end the game. So you try and aim to get chip damage through with your dragons in the early stages, and then, end the game with that final burst combo. It's one of the ways control decks have kind of shifted to recently, is they really want that explosive end.
Yeah, I think the Mind Blast stuff is going to mean a lot less if your opponent's healing for 10 to 15 damage with their Kingsbane that gets buffed like crazy. And I was actually playing some Kingsbane Road right before this event started. And man, does that deck not die. It is just so hard to lose once you get Kingsbane to like the critical amount. I would probably say it's around 8 to 9 damage because it just feels like you can handle any board state. Effectively remove targets, and you will always prevent fatigue by just having Valir the Hollow play with the double Kingsbane interaction.
8 to 9 damage Kingsbane is your critical point. Like you're not even concerned with like the Arcanate Reaper version of Kingsbane where you got like a 5/3.
Well, no, because the 5/3 you could still kind of put big, fat bodies in the way, like Primordial Drake, for example. It's like you can't really effectively remove the board, and then they'll combo you down. And then 8's kind of like at that point where they can gain back half their life immediately with a Doomerang. It just feels like that's a point of no return. A little bit before that, you still feel like you have a fighting chance, but that's what it is—a chance. It's not a guarantee.
Kingsbanes can get massive. I believe we were doing the math. If you maximized all the buffs onto the Kingsbane, I believe, what was it we said, like 24? Something ridiculous.
I got it to, what, 18 or 19 in Kingsbane Mirror, the game that we were sitting next to each other and playing. But I could have also maybe saved my Prep Vanish for bigger. I could have played double Toxicology, Prep Vanish, and get 4 more. So it actually is around that range. Basically, at one point, your Kingsbane can effectively kill your opponent in one turn if they go deep in fatigue.
That's scary.
Which is
scary
very
world.
scary. Yeah. Like, if they start taking like 2-3 damage of fatigue, just keep buffing the Kingsbane Rogue, save your Vanishes, and go to town. Asuna is going to keep drawing, gets double Mind Blast right after she drew one of her first Shadow Visions. So that's a little bit inconvenient. Not the end of the world, though.
Yeah, I do like the fact that Asuna's drawing here. She recognizes that playing out minions won't really do as much as you'd like it to against Kingsbane. Eventually, they're going to get the Kingsbane going. They're going to get that Leeching Poison and be able to get lifesteal on the Kingsbane. Once that happens, all the damage you did with minions are basically negated at that point. So you really want to race to your combo as quickly as possible to try and see if you can beat them to that Kingsbane Leeching Poison combo.
Alright, well, speaking of which, Kingsbane finally making an appearance in the hand. which is not actually as unfortunate as you might think it is. The more I play Kingsbane 2, the more I realize early on it's not that important to get. Just you need to get it eventually. The early dagger is perfectly fine to remove, and you often need to be very judicious with how often you attack with Kingsbane, just because a lot of times you might be limited by the charges being set on it. If you want to go for like an attack and Doomerang, but you don't have enough mana to like replay the weapon that same turn, you have to just be very careful, which is why a lot of people compare this to Quest Rogue, because both Rogue decks have inevitability in the late game, but Kingsbane is a little bit more punishing with how you manage your mana, I would say, based off the way like it requires an additional sequencing of how you play the weapon versus like Blade Flurry and Doomerang.
Yeah, partitioning your resources is very important in this deck. Is if you know, most Rogue decks, if you partition them wrong, it really separates, you know, how good you are with the deck. One of the inclusions with this Rogue deck that has made it more viable, that we've seen a lot of players bringing it recently, is actually Raiding Party. It's 3 mana, draw 2 pirates, combo, draw a weapon from your deck. It ultimately makes having Kingsbane in your hand, just, you will always have it. You've got 2 Cavern Shiny Finders plus 2 Raiding Parties, so with that combination, you'll be able to have it almost instantly, but Skulking Geist, pretty good against Kingsbane.
It is, although a Deadly Poison was just used, and it looks like a Doomerang at the same time. Also, if Asuna burns her Shadowy Branduin, is this game just over? Feels close to it.
Probably, especially with 2 Mind Blasts already in hand and not being able to find that third one. You know, you're still going to play it out because you never know what could happen, but yeah. I would say most likely. I mean, it's really hard to end the game as Dragon Priest when you don't have the necessary burn that you would need to end the game.
Yep, that makes sense. Also, the slightly annoying thing, the hand space issue, because Asuna has a full hand. Not even going to dig with the Shadow Visions. Let's look at her deck list here. So, remaining in the deck is Psychic Scream, Holy Fire, Mass Hysteria. And I think
Mass Hysteria is an interesting inclusion.
Divine Hymns. So, those are the cards that you would discover. So, perhaps she's trying to narrow down the field of what she draws first before she goes for the Shadow Visions. Having like a guaranteed Holy Fire would be really powerful, because then you have 2 Holy Fires, or 3 rather, because of the extra copy you discover. And then Shadowy Brandon weaving in hero powers. That's still good enough to get over the hump a lot of times.
Yeah, not only that, but also drawing cards, you know, with Shadow Visions you can only draw the select spells, but if you utilize your hero power to draw cards, you can actually draw into Anduin, which I would say is, you know, much more important. Of course, Shadow Vision, someone gets a copy of the spell, so it's not like you're actually thinning when you Shadow Visions.
Yeah, Asuna going to start off with Shadow Visions to discover that Holy Fire that we mentioned. I would like to eventually get things like the Skulking Geist just out onto the board. Not only is it great for the battle cry, it's just good amount of pressure, and I think one of the ways people forget about Kingsbane Rogues, they're so busy like trying to interrupt their combo. Why not just kill them? Like really, they need so much time to set up. Just go get them.
Just get them.
Yeah.
I like the
Grab
idea.
the bowling ball by the horns.
Like grab the bowling ball by the horns. Could you imagine if bowling balls had horns? That would not go down an alley.
I'm sure there's some Warcraft lore that plays a sport with bowling balls. Discovering the Inner Fire does give a lot of punch to this Twilight Drake. And you still are 1 turn away from the, what's it called? The Valir the Hollow. Yeah, sorry. So you have an opportunity to get it, and it looks like Asuna favors using her mana for Shadow Visions to get a little bit deeper into her deck for the Holy Fire number 2. But this is kind of something that we were talking about. The trade-off last turn of healing yourself and getting 2 extra health versus using that Shadow Visions because you know you need to invest that mana. I think that's a little bit of a sequence punishing, because Asuna realized she wanted to do that. Now that Holy Fire was like one of the
especially only running 1 Holy Fire in the list. Once you draw it, it's not like Mind Blast. Typically Mind Blast you have 2 of in the list, so you can kind of afford to draw 1 and then utilize the other one later, but definitely with only 1 Holy Fire in the list, pretty beneficial to get that out as quickly as possible.
And again, another slight punish for the Doomerang not supposed to be in the hand, having Skulking Geist been played. And that gives No Hands more longevity off the Kingsbane, which he would be forced to draw into a Sprint or a Cavern Shiny Finder.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen potentially the Skulking Geist come earlier. A little bit of a devil's advocate argument for like not playing the Skulking Geist is, in a weird way, it might be better for them to draw something like the Doomerang if you're going for trying to end them with hero power combo pieces, rather than drawing something like Valera. So effectively, you may dilute their deck by keeping the 1-mana cards inside of there. I think that's a bit of a stretch, though, and I definitely think, you know, getting the Skulking Geist on the board means that they can't Doomerang to clear the minions like we saw there with the Boomerang played onto the Twilight Drake, whereas the Twilight Drake could have potentially pushed a little bit more damage.
No, it's a really good point. I think pushing a little bit extra damage might not seem that big of a deal. It just forces the Kingsbane Rogue to play a specific way, and there's also the breakpoints that matter. Twilight Drake was chosen to be at 6 health when it could have been at 8 health, and that just makes it a little bit more difficult to remove. Maybe that puts just a little bit more pressure. Maybe force them to use their resources a little bit more aggressively.
But I think we're seeing right here one of the inherent issues with Dragon Priest in this matchup is that, sure, it's great, you have so much burn, but Kingsbane can just heal any damage you do right back.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, you know, how big of a role Alexstrasza is going to play in that, because Alexstrasza will set the 15, but if the Kingsbane gets too big anyways, they still will get outside that range of, what, the 19 that you get, or the 16 you get with the 2 Mind Blasts?
Yeah, if you have to have 3 Mind Blasts to do the 19 damage, because you'll fit in 2 Hero Power Pings with Anduin. With 2 Mind Blasts, which is the typical, you know, combo, it's 16. You fit in 3 pings, doing 2 damage each, and the 2 Mind Blasts to finish it off with that final 10 burst damage. The thing is, I don't think Kingsbane Rogue at this rate is going to ever be that low. Even with Alexstrasza, I mean, Alexstrasza can just be put back into the hand with something like a Vanish, and then just go ahead and swing face.
Still would like to see Skulking Geist come out here. Like, you do want to take down the Deadly Poison at the very least, but that's only the last remaining card, I believe.
That is the last remaining one drop, I believe. They typically only run the 2 of Boomerang and the 2 of Deadly Poison, but still getting rid of Deadly Poison, especially when Valera could be played, effectively reduces Kingsbane by 4, which could make a huge difference later on.
Yeah, that's a massive difference. Again, I think the break point is going for this matchup is going to be around that 8 to 10 mark, and the closer we get to that, the harder it is for Asuna to make that push for damage. But having 2 Holy Fires in the hand and 1 more in the deck will also give Asuna a little bit more range. Drink up behind me. I would actually like to see NoHands consider a Prep Vanish in this spot too, just because of how powerful it is to keep upgrading your Kingsbane. And Vanish is a little bit of an awkward card against Priest because you want to use it against their big dragons, but at the same time, it's like you really want to get value off your battle cries. Yeah. You don't even have Valera yet, so I like this play a lot by NoHands.
Did miss it on 1 damage, but not playing the Toxicologist first before swinging.
Yeah,
very minor thing.
It's probably not going to matter nearly as much as him choosing the Vanish.
Oh my gosh!
Well, that's it.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. That is game.
Well, we lost a spectator for one of the hands, but I don't think we need to even really know.
I think we lost something more important from the other hand.
Yikes. Ooh. That hurts.
I don't even know if we need to see.
I mean,
NoHandsGame.
Good on Asuna to just at least keep playing it out, but good lord, does this look bad.
As long as this Alexstrasza dies, I don't see a way NoHands loses this. As long as NoHands can manage this Alexstrasza with fairly reasonable life total, there's still quite a bit of burst damage. So, you know, if there isn't like potentially a sap or some more weapon buffs or Valera picked up, then maybe the Alexstrasza could get there a little bit.
Yes. However, I'm also of the opinion that it's perfectly fine to simply like Blade Flurry to deal with this mess.
I think so as well, especially because you have so many weapon draws in the deck.
You have 2 Cavern Shiny Finders. You're okay.
Blade Flurry would have been lethal there a long time ago.
Oh man, that's right. I forgot about that argument. People were like so sad about Blade Flurry.
I am
being
still
nerfed,
sad about Blade Flurry.
But my goodness, would it be
imagine how
terribly
powerful?
overpowered it'd be right now.
I think it'd be perfectly fine
with Kingsbane.
I welcome our Kingsbane Overlords.
Ooh, man.
I wonder.
It just would have been lethal.
Yeah, it would have been straight up lethal. Is there a way for Asuna to even survive? Because we know Cavern Shadowfinder will pick up the Kingsbane.
I really like how aggressive she's considering taking this line. I think it's like the one potential way to win the game. If she does go for something like the Holy Fire, potentially maybe even a Wild Pyromancer fitting in a Mind Blast as well in order to clear up the 2/2. That's a potential line of play.
But the problem is you still die if your opponent has any way to fish for the Kingsbane.
To be honest, maybe you just have to hope that in the Kingsbane 6-card hand they don't have a single weapon draw. I don't know what that hand could be, but you are not winning the game anywhere else.
Well, this is the proper play to survive if she heals herself. It's still fine, I think.
That's going to be lethal. Wait.
Yes,
that will be.
Yes.
No, actually, I think 1 mana off because you can't play the Toxicologist as well. The Kingsbane is only at 9 attack right now.
Oh, I thought it was at 10. I apologize. He's at 9 attack. You are correct. Still good.
I'd take a 9/5 weapon, you know, any day with Lifesteal. A 1 mana 9/5 weapon. That's what Pirate Warrior needed back in the day. I think that would have put Pirate Warrior over the top.
I think it would have been very balanced.
A clever concoction.
Play that, you coin out a small-time Buccaneer.
Why not just attach that to the Zot's first mate? Just equips a 10/5 weapon.
I don't see anything wrong with it. Dan, are you secretly on the design team?
They do take some of my ideas.
I really hope they don't take that one.
And the worst part is, even if Asuna could survive with the Divine Hymn, the Dustbreaker has been shut off, so now her choices are to use Wild Pyromancer AoE. Although it's actually okay, because you can Holy Fire, Divine Hymn, and push damage. But man, I had a feeling that, like, at least if there was Shadow Rebrand, maybe you could stay in it, kind of. But it feels very bleak.
I don't even know what Shadow Rebrand and if you could stay in it. I mean, I just feel like there's too much healing on the other side.
It's like at least there was like an above 0% chance.
I know, like that 0.1.
Like 1% chance or less. But now it's like it just feels like 0.
It is finished.
Yeah,
she realized it.
There's no point in keep playing it out. She can keep dragging it on, but hey, we have 4 entire rounds of Swiss to play. Playing it in droves.
I feel like the Baleful Banker version is more consistent, and that just doesn't guarantee kill some decks.
The Holy Fire?
Yeah, the Holy Wrath one where you just
the Holy Wrath.
You deal 50 damage in 1 turn, hopefully. I'm not a huge fan of this Control Paladin.
Well, we will go to that Control Paladin versus Even Paladin. The bans, by the way, as mentioned, Taunt Druid was banned away from No Hands, and then Asuna, her Spell Hunter was banned. Hunter, of course, being one of the big enemies of the meta. It has led to a very interesting matchup of different decks, so I want to see if this OTK Paladin can handle the pressure of the Even Paladin.
It's a little bit curious. I think, actually, if there is a matchup that Control Paladin may, have an edge in, it would be one like this, where, Paladin in the Even variety is trying to maintain or capitalize on just building, kind of a tall board state, or just capitalizing on having 2 mid-range size minions, whereas I would say Paladin on the other end, the Control Paladin variant, has quite the tools to answer that. They've got the Equality Consecrates, they've got, Tarim to kind of keep minions in check, and they've also got things like Blessings of Kings, or no, I'm sorry, not Blessings of Kings. I had a card there that I was going to say, Dan, and I completely forgot it. True Silver Champion.
True Silver Champion.
That's what I was going to say. That's a 4-mana card.
I was just going to start naming other 4-mana cards. Spirit of the Tiger, Consecration, Corpse Taker, True
Spirit of the Tiger in the list?
Yeah.
That's a new card.
The Glass Knight. Don't be so surprised. There indeed was an expansion release last week. So logically, they would want to play some of the new cards. Asuna with a position where she could play the Wild Pyromancer, or she can just Hero Power. Wild Pyromancer just gets better over time. Choosing not to even Hero Power to give the Amati Berserker an easy trade in, but I mean, she's going to have bigger problems on her hands in just a second here with the Corpse Takers.
Ooh. And I've heard fabled rumors of the win condition of Even Paladin. That's coin Corpse Taker into Blessings of Kings.
Oh, man.
That's 14 damage being pushed next turn with no answer.
Good. And people ask, how big is a deal is it? Just nerf things by 1 mana. Seems like a minor tap. It's like, oh, well, you can see Call to Arms only being 5 mana is a pretty big deal right now.
Call to Arms is 4 mana. I think even Paladin would reign supreme over everything. That deck would absolutely be bonkers. I mean, it was really good.
That's
actually what happened.
Back in the Witchwood meta, yeah. And Call to Arms is already good, but
I mean, being 5 mana
when you give it the
makes
even
it seem
Paladin.
fair. Has to hero power on turn 4.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those things where maybe hero powering the previous turn would even had merit to it, but now this Blessing of Kings is going to sting, and Pyro Quality doesn't even deal with it, and you're staring at lethal next turn. Your best play is Call to Arms, which is going to pull out...
Has to pull out Righteous Protector.
Yeah.
And a Righteous Protector just got drawn. I think, is there a chance it whiffs? There's Blood Mage, there's Kangor.
Yep, Loot Hoarders.
There's a big
Pyromancer.
chance it whiffs, especially with that Righteous Protector draw.
So maybe you just play the Righteous Protector instead and buff it up with Blessing of Kings.
I mean, maybe you have to Consecrate. That way there's not an extra minion on the board in order for them to get through.
Okay, that's okay. Righteous Protector to absorb 14 damage. I like it.
With the second Blessings of Kings, it would soak 22.
Well, the thing is, then you can't consecrate the following turn with Wild Pyromancer or have a quality consecrate off the top of a draw.
But if you draw a quality, I think, just having the Wild Pyromancer might just be enough.
That's assuming that... Yeah, that's true. You're right. I'm just trying to provide...
You do have Sunkeeper Tarim on the follow-up, just in case, this is not looking too great for... But just in case, Sunkeeper Tarim will be able to make that Corpse Taker a 3/3 again.
Yeah.
Kind of, getting rid of that Blessings of Kings buff and just putting a large taunt in the way and hopefully saying, you know what, finally we've dealt with this minion. But as we can see with the second Blessings of Kings, minion's not going to be dealt with anytime soon.
Winter is here.
That is a champion protector if I've ever seen one. Oh my
That is the most
goodness.
righteous of protectors. Promote him. Make him a mini-bot.
Reporting for duty.
14 damage. Damn.
Oh, there's an equality, but it's not good enough because of Divine Shield. And if you play Sunkeeper Tarim, the Blessing 1 time, I think you're still dead.
Yes, because that'd be 14 damage on the backswing.
Yeah.
So
is that it?
you can Sunkeeper Tarim, and I believe that's still lethal, so it has to be the Wild Pyromancer quality. But with that, it's not going to clear up this last Corpse Taker, and NoHands going to go off to a quick 2-0 lead.
Oh my gosh. This is destruction. Oh my goodness. It's just complete and absolute utter obliteration because of just 2 back-to-back Corpse Takers with Wind Furies annihilating Asuna. She's just like, what?
Is this really happening right now? Is this real life? It is real life, Asuna. You are not dreaming.
I do want to say that I personally think this happens fairly often when I play a control OTK palette. I just like there's fantastic removal tools, but they often need to pair with each other. It often has to be like an equality and a consecration with a 4-2 score. This is an important distinction to note because after 9 rounds, we will most likely have several players with X2 that get through to the next phase of the tournament. Now, Cube Warlock versus a Dragon Control Priest does have a lot of give and take to the matchup because of how things like Psychic Scream play a dynamic into stuff and how it can really mess up recruits, how it can really mess up what demons get revived off of Blood River Gul'dan. So it usually is up to the Warlock to pressure before the priest assembles time to just combo down, because the healing for Cube Warlock is nowhere near as good as it used to be because of the Dark Pact nerf almost a year ago now. So it really comes down to, can the Warlock put enough pressure, and then the opposite swing, can the priest assemble enough burn in the late stage of the game.
Another important factor in this matchup is now that Mass Hysteria is a card, if there was something like, that turn 3 Mountain Giant Cube Block is very infamous for, into a Faceless, they now have an answer that would come out before Anduin and Psychic Scream. So
True.
it makes the matchup a little bit different. I'd still say, you know, Cublock has that same very strong explosive pressure that it can just generate and end games sometimes, especially with Skull Minari with no weapon removal in hand. So it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be pretty tough for the Priest here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that even though you know, the way we're setting up made it sound like, oh, like Warlock doesn't win in this matchup, it actually has really good pressure tools. But it often is dependent on, like, does Priest have the removal too to line up, and we always know that's not the case.
No Hands is thinking about whether there's two strong lines of play here. There's the life tap Doomsayer, you know, try and set up for the Twilight Drake to die, or there's the guarantee kill with the Spellstone. Now the Spellstone, sometimes you try and save it later on after the Alexstrasza turn. That way you can heal back up out of that 15 range, because it's one of your very minuscule ways to heal. But the thing is, if you use it now, you stage off some of the, you know, chip damage that Priest generates from that first Twilight Drake. And Spellstone doesn't have that many great targets in this deck. There are the Twilight Drakes, Alexstrasza, and Primordial Drake, and that's really about it for Spellstone targets. Skull on 5.
Yeah, Skull on 5 is just, it's very scary because of the implication of Voidlord or Doomguards being pulled out.
What is in
Oh, especially when, you know, turn 6 is that infamous Cube Dark Pack play. It's just terrifying to stare that down with no weapon removal.
Yeah, well, that attack's happening no matter what. I mean, playing Dustbreaker is not exactly great, even though it's your most expensive minion, so perhaps we dig with the Shadow Visions first to see if we can pick up removal options for the inevitable cube scenario. The thing is, you only have 6
mana. I think you may have to fetch
mana.
another one. I think you may have to fetch another Psychic Scream, because this one's going to be used early from the way it looks. And the scariest part about this for Asuna is she does not have weapon removal in her Priest.
Wow. Just a straight up pass on 5.
That's rough.
Oh man, I'm not sure. Like the thing about it is that you eventually are going to be under a lot of pressure to the point where you need to be mana efficient. And floating 5 in this scenario, I get why you want to pass, is because there's so many. There's basically one of each spell left in the pool, so you don't know where you're going to get. It's very inconsistent. At the same time, though, I don't know if you're in that position to be able to. I don't think you have the luxury to just pass on 5.
I don't think so either. I think you have to fish for some kind of form of removal. Especially because if you draw, say, the second Psychic Scream, like, sure, great, you have 2 Psychic Screams, but you may need a third one with how this game is currently going.
Oh, interesting. So, because No Hand sees a pass, maybe he's feeling less confident to extend into the board?
To be honest, I think this might just be threatening enough, especially with the Possessed Lackey down and how much follow-up No Hands has. If No Hands goes for a play with either the Cube or the Faceless, it kind of dilutes the pool in the deck, meaning that you don't necessarily have as, you know, powerful draws, right? Like the Gul'dan you want to see, maybe the Doom Guards to be pulled off. Topsy-Turvy.
Topsy-Turvy is interesting because it lets you kill the Void Lord. Inner Fire is also particularly interesting too, because it just like sets up a rather large minion, a 7/7.
All right, hear me out, Dan. We find the other Witch Doctor. If you're Asuna in this situation, you find the other Witch Doctor. You then get Shadow of Madness. You take the Topsy-Turvy. You then Shadow Madness the Void Lord and Topsy-Turvy it for that lethal damage.
Oh, that's pretty PogChamp, man. Yeah, you
spicy.
Control the Void Lord for that turn, flip its health and attack, deal 9 to the face. I like it.
And then pass. Because the game's probably not over. Or you Topsy-Turvy it, so you can Andu in it.
Well, the thing is, you could clear the board right now, but I think Asuna feels okay, like, with the board state because she has Psychic Scream on the following turn. So this pass, I think, is completely justified. Assuming No Hands does not get Doomguard to punish the Wedgie Domes.
Yeah, that's a Doomguard, Dan. That's going to be a lot of damage. I wouldn't be surprised to see all of this just go face.
There just wasn't really much to do, though, for Asuna's position. And so, No Hands gets the cube. Going to be able to go for the Doom Pact.
The greatest part about this is with the Dark Pact, even if Psychic Scream comes out here, it's going to shuffle 2 Doom Guards in the deck, which makes Possessed Lackey just that more potent when it's played next turn.
Yeah, is there any weapon removal in this deck? I don't think so.
Not for Asuna. There's no weapon removal whatsoever. Yeah. Typically, they put in the 1 copy of Gluttonous Ooze. I do like this, though. The reason Asuna is going for this play is to dilute the draws and the possessed lackey pool by putting in the Void Walkers.
Yep, it's a very nice move. Alright, well. NoHands just going to life tap and keep chugging along. Nothing really too important. Possess Lackey number 2 to maybe thin out the deck, pull out one of those Doom Guards, or at least get the Void Walkers out of the way.
Not only that, but it also just kind of threatens that lethal damage. If Asuna doesn't respect this or doesn't have an answer, what could potentially happen is the Hellfire plus could pull out Doom Guard with the Faceless on the next turn.
Yeah.
A lot of potential things could go wrong with this Possessed Lackey on the board. You can't just Primordial Drake either.
Well, I mean, it's not like Cube Warlock has a lot of traditional removal tools that Control Warlock does. So if you do end up playing Primordial Drake, you still have a 4/8 taunt.
You have to hope the Void Walker comes out, and it does.
Yeah, it's likely. There's 3 Void Walkers, 2 Doom Guard or 3 Doom Guards, so it's 50% chance. Of course, she didn't know that because we didn't know that if there's more demons in the hands or no hands.
See, and life tapping is really funny because although it does get you closer to cards like Blood Reaver, Gul'dan, which NoHands is really looking for here, it's kind of funny to think that you could draw the Void Walker, meaning that you'd have to be committed to playing it.
It makes your hand worse, so you have to get it out. That's a really good point.
But I still think life tapping is correct there. You want to find Gul'dan as quickly as possible. Once you have Gul'dan on the board, it's very, very difficult to lose the game.
This is looking like another juicy opportunity to get Psychic Scream, but it still doesn't exactly get you in a good spot because you're still afraid of dying.
And, you know, Defile boards are hard to look for. I can't imagine looking for Mass Hysteria boards right now.
Yeah, you know, I don't... That's a good point. I mean, it could work out really nicely depending on how the attacks go down.
And then you can Primordial Drake on the follow-up to clear off the 1/3s if everything dies. The issue is, it could go completely wrong.
Yeah, it could just be like the Void Lord standing. Or like...
Yeah, exactly, the 3/1 Void Lord. The 3/1.
Oh, well, there's
With Power Word Shield, you could actually change that as well. You could Power Word Shield one of the opposing minions and then cast the Mass Hysteria in order to try and find a unique way to clear the board. Because right now, the worst case scenario, if you do choose to cast Mass Hysteria, would be Ooze hits the Spirit Singer Umbra, Umbra hits the 1/3, and Void Lord stands.
Asuna cast a Psychic Scream. That is death. She's dead. Doomguard's going to get pulled out. Faceless and Prince Tal'Daram or Faceless and Hellfire will wrap it up. That is a quick 3-0. You can see the pain expression on Asuna's face.
She is just... Can't blame her. That was a rough series to go through. It just... I think what it was is NoHands' lineup just played perfectly well into Asuna's.
Yeah.
All of NoHands' decks were just well-crafted and just well-piloted overall.
I think Control Priest has a lot of promise. I even am willing to say that Control Paladin with the combo has a place in the metagame. I don't know if it's necessarily...
All right,